Respected principal sir, participants from all over India and my dear colleagues, I welcome you all to the last day of 7-day virtual national level capacity building program on integration of pedagogy and technology in teaching learning organized by Multanibal Modi College Patiala in collaboration with Council for Teacher Education Foundation. Before starting today's session, I am presenting a brief report of the previous day's proceeding. I also want to inform you that all the proceedings of this capacity building program are available on the YouTube channel of the college. So you can visit our YouTube channel to see all these proceedings. The resource person for the day before yesterday was Dr. Adit Gupta, Principal MIER College Jammu. The resource person was introduced by Dr. Neeraj Goyal, member IQAC, and formal welcome was given by Professor Shailendra Sidhu, coordinator IQAC, on behalf of Multanibal Modi College and CTEF. The topic of the talk was innovative practices in technology and research. Dr. Gupta explained the innovative practices for institutional excellence. He very nicely explained the integration of technology in the innovative practices in teaching, learning, assessment and evaluation, research, and institutional management. He also explained the use of LMS for classroom management, video conferencing tool for online classes, social media, SurveyMonkey for conducting online survey, virtual tour of campus with Google Maps, and Pi 360 for data analysis. The presidential remarks were given by Dr. Jaspal Singh, Associate Professor DDE Jammu, Jammu University, and vote of thanks was proposed by Professor Ved Prakash Sharma, Dean Student Welfare and member of IQAC of the college. Now let me introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. Khushvinder Kumar, Principal Multanibal Modi College Patiala. Dr. Khushvinder Kumar started his teaching career from government school and with hard work, dedication and discipline, rose to the position of principal at a very young age. He proved his leadership at BCM College of Education, Ludhiana, and joined MM Modi College in 2014 as principal. His teaching interests include educational research and statistics, education of exceptional children, teaching of mathematics. His research areas are educational research and statistics, education of exceptional children, and teaching of mathematics. He has published 36 research papers in national and international journals, published 12 books as author or editor, and presented many papers in national and international conferences. Dr. Khushvinder Kumar has delivered invited talks, keynote address, and resource person for 71 conferences, workshops, and FDPs. 9 scholars has completed their PhD research work under his guidance. He is an active member of NAC peer team Bangalore and assessed 7 colleges from different parts of India. We are fortunate enough to have such a dynamic personality with us for today's session. Now for the formal welcome, I invite Professor Shailendra Sidhu, Vice Principal and Coordinator of IQAC. So over to Madam Shailendra.
Thank you, Professor Ajit. Respected Dr. Khushvinder Kumar, Principal Multanibal Modi College, and all participants, good afternoon. I extend a hearty welcome to all on the concluding day of this 7-day capacity building program. We have been extremely fortunate to have had the opportunity to listen to and interact with such eminent scholars in the course of this capacity building program. The topic on which we will be enlightened and informed about today is outcome-based education. Outcome-based education is a student-centric teaching and learning methodology in which the course, delivery, assessment are planned to achieve stated objectives and outcomes. It focuses on measuring student performance, that is, outcomes at different levels. Change is the only constant today, and with it comes the need for education systems to update and adapt their approach or risk becoming obsolete. Outcome-based education is a pedagogical model that entails restructuring of the curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment practices to reflect the achievement of high order learning as opposed to the accumulation of mere course credits. It must equip the students with life skills, vocational skills, intellectual and interpersonal skills. It boasts of being clear, flexible, globally comparable, as well as compatible and interactive. It is indeed a privilege to be under the constant tutelage and support of our worthy principal, Dr. Khushvinder Kumar, who is always eager to discuss and implement innovative pedagogical techniques. The participants are fortunate to learn the basics of outcome-based education from him. He is going to elaborate on the semantics, traits, and execution of outcome-based education. I'm sure this session is going to be very enriching and productive. A very warm welcome to you, sir, from all present here. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Ajit.
Thank you, Professor Shailendra Sidhu. And now invite resource person of the session, Dr. Khushvinder Kumar. The topic of the session is outcome-based education. Over to Dr. Khushvinder Kumar.
Very good morning, all present. Dr. Ajit, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Let me share my screen. A very good morning, all present. Let me accept one thing before starting, that my laptop created certain problem just before starting, so I'm struggling with that. Anyhow, thank you very much for the generous words spoken about me. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Right. Very good morning, participants. Though I planned to start with Mentimeter, but somehow I couldn't start. So I hope you are with me. Let's start with certain questions. If you can reflect upon one or two questions through your chat boxes. First question, as the topic has already been well exposed by Madam Shailendra Sidhu, outcome-based education. Dear participants, permit me to ask one question. What you consider the strongest weakness of Indian higher education system at present? Kindly text your response in telegraphic language, not more than 2 or 3 words. You can give 2-3 choices, what the weaknesses you think are in the higher education system. I'm waiting for 1 minute. And in the meantime, though I was not supposed to reveal in the beginning, but as I'm not getting any response, so for the time, permit me to share 4 aspects. One is the word ranking. There are 2 word ranking, THE word ranking and QS word ranking. In both of the word ranking for last 10 years, our premier institutions are struggling to get slot in first 200 institutions of the world, but it was rare 1 or 2 times when our institutes find place in first 200 institutions of the world. Otherwise, they in the current recently released survey, we have the from 300 to 350 ranking we have in that rank only. Secondly, is regarding the placement. Many of the surveys has revealed yes, chats are visible. Yes, less practical skills, less practical knowledge. mm, no, not practical. Once again, less vocationalization, evaluation criteria, education content is totally alienated from the social, political, economic realities, not practically applicable, theoretical, quality and accountability, not outcome based, evaluation, right. So these were some of the observations. Now my next question, before I start my presentation, what do you think are the reasons for these weaknesses? Kindly once again reflect in your chat box. What are the reasons? Basics of any subject are not clear. Very good. Curriculum is not updated, Manjeet, yes. More academic and less practical, non-attending students. Curriculum design is not appropriate, Sanjay, just Germanjeet say also reflect upon curriculum is the reason. Curriculum is not updated well, poor curriculum and lack of staff, gap between theory and practice, practical courses, Kuljinder Kaur say poor curriculum, academic and industry interaction lacking very good. Education for job is only reason, Sunita Goel, very good observation. Lack of quality education, poor curriculum, capable persons are not in board of studies, very good. Teachers training is poor, traditional way of teaching. Another question, now my third question is, what remedies you suggest for overcoming these weaknesses? What remedies, I repeat, you suggest to overcome these shortcomings? Lack of proper coordination between development paradigm, it's okay. But kindly reflect upon what remedies you suggest. Strong industry academia coordination, good. Practical participatory learning, welcome. Neelam Kumari, Dinesh say quality development, say quality improvement, stringent robust process of hiring teachers, okay. Constitution of UGC like body, suggestions should be taken from the teachers at the time of curriculum design, need more practical effective teacher training, redesigning of syllabus, government goodwill, mass awareness on quality education, right. Well, thank you so much for your observations. Skill-based knowledge should be given. Online teaching should be there, participation with, right. Well, if you once again reflect upon your observations, if I would have been able to use Mentimeter, it should have given you popped up, say, analysis of the data also, but I really feel sorry for that. But you can basically, weaknesses, whatever was given, may be categorized into 4 types. Quality of, quality ranking of the higher education institutions, or placement and outcome, skill gap, which are required by, demanded by the industry and given by the institute, and our civil society, how our civil society is behaving. Most of your observations can be categorized into this. Coming to next. Rohit, just permit me 1 minute. Slide once again has stuck. I apologize. I'll take just 1 minute. ये मेरी slide open कर दे। OBE. Dr. Ajit, I really apologize. I'm logging in from another system.
Okay, sir, no problem.
Sorry. Now, coming to the reasons you have mentioned, I will categorize in six say categories. Firstly, lack of accountability. One or two observations pertain to this. Secondly, courses are not up to date and relevant. Majority of you reported this. Teaching process is not transparent, innovative, and flexible. Many of you gave responses to this category. Teaching faculty is inadequate, poorly qualified, incompetent. Some observations were from this, and faculty is underpaid and facilities are not adequate, and student intake is less and is of poor quality. We basically can categorize into these points. Now coming to what are the solutions, what outcome based education is. Dear colleagues, outcome based education is basically have these objectives: to make our education globally competitive, to make it comparable, and to make it socially relevant and futuristic. If I have to refer one definition, Tucker in 2005 defined it as the been given by Tucker that our aim is the mastery rather than accumulation of course credits. In India, we recently, in last 1 decade, we started talking about CBCS, means the credits or qualifying the credits. But whereas the contemporary world is rejecting the credits or going a step ahead of the credits, that perhaps gaining the credits or acquiring the grades is not only the thing which is required, rather what mastery level we fix and attain, that actually is required. So coming to outcome based education, what basically is outcome based education, or what are the outcomes? Firstly, we start with our national outcomes of the education which are expected at national level. Uh, at our national level. Secondly, at institutional level. At national level, our outcomes or the fixed outcomes which as a nation, as a state we expect is usually reflected in our policy documents, national policy documents. And what are institutional outcomes expectation that is reflected in our vision or mission. Program outcomes and course outcomes. Let me make the terminology first clear. Program word I will be referring wherever. Program means what usually we refer as the course, means the course of say BA or course of BSc or say course of BCom. I will be referring it as a program. Program of BA, program of BCom, program of BSc. Whereas course usually what we conventionally say, the paper, say paper of physics, paper of chemistry in BSc course, in BSc program, that is referred as course. So I hope it is clear. Program I will be referring for that for which we gave a degree or a diploma, degree of BSc, degree of BCom, degree of BBA, degree of BCA. Whereas course I will be referring as those papers which one opt or which are the mandatory papers and one prepared appear at the end of the semester or annually. Those will now, for example, in say course of BSc, we say subject of physics, subject of chemistry, subject of mathematics. I will be referring it as course. In case of BA, say subject of English, subject of political science, subject of economics, I'll be referring it as the course. So I hope I'm clear. So the program outcomes are what outcomes we expect from our program or the degree which we are offering to a student. For example, we are offering a degree of say BA 3-year or 4-year program, or BCom 3-year or 4-year program. So what are the program outcomes exactly that what student will be able to do after the completion of degree after 3 or 4 years? Whereas course outcome refer to those courses, various courses ranging from I think say 4 or 5 per semester, which he or she is appearing. What exactly are the outcomes which one expect to exhibit, capable of doing after completion of the course, after the end. And lastly, the ELOs. The learning outcomes are the learning outcomes that are expected at any terminal stage. Now, this terminal stage may be one session also. For example, we are having today one session. And what is the learning outcome after this session? Somebody has raised hand. You can text if you have any query. So the learning outcomes are what we expect the participant to complete after the completion of the session. If I have to refer, I think many of the participants had attended all the programs. On the very first day, Dr. Prateek Bhatia started in the beginning by clearly defining what will be the learning outcomes of his session. Similarly, Professor Jayanti Datta also started with orating what are the learning outcomes expected from her session. I intentionally skipped it, but at the end I'll be asking what will be my objectives, because in some another way I started with it in the beginning. Right. So coming to Yes. When I was referring to the national outcomes of the education which are expected from our education, usually it is, as I told, by reflected by our policy documents. I'm mentioning only 3 policy documents. It will be very much clear to you. University Education Policy 1948, then Kothari Education Commission 1964, and the recently released document National Education Policy 2020. I have skipped National Policy of Education 1986, Declaration 1964. And that has if you compare, I have made certain things bold. If you compare, I'll be taking one only. For example, in 1984, 1948, our national vision was to produce the able citizens. Whereas in 64, our policy documents say increasing productivity was our mission. Whereas in the present system, NEP 2020 say effective governance and greater to the institutions is our design the vision and mission. We should be clear about that what are our national vision and mission, or what are the national expectations. Secondly, what are our institutional learning expectations or outcomes? It is very much clear by our vision or mission. I have written here, anybody mention the mission of you as it is before you. I'm waiting if anybody is able to write the vision and mission. If I have to reflect that vision of Multanimal Modi College mainly focus on that institute affordable quality education, which is to make the students humane and conscious of contemporary societal concerns. 4 points. Firstly, and fourthly, conscious of contemporary societal concerns. And how to translate this vision in mission? We have started. We have say orated that we wish our students to be having good higher order thinking skills and care for sustenance of the ecosystem and strive for excellence. We have defined like this. I haven't received any response till now from any of the participants that what are your institutional vision or mission. I think my task starts from here. If nobody is exactly responding, it means you find it difficult to orate what is the mission or vision of the institute in which you are serving. We have to be very much clear, because that will be fixing all those, that will be and say taking into consideration all those weaknesses which you have perceived or observed in the very beginning. Now when I have to reflect on the basis of Multanimal Modi College, so there are certain things which has not been say included in our vision and mission. So we have to update our vision or mission if it need be. But I think majority of the observations have been covered in our vision and mission. Yes. Now, how to implement outcome-based education? There is some disturbance. How we have to focus upon three things: content, pedagogy, and assessment and evaluation practices. And then we have to continuously improve the quality on the basis of these three. Now, the first include the curriculum. Content include the curriculum, staff, facilities, and fixing your learning outcomes. Now the learning outcomes starting from your vision, mission, and coming downward. I will try to take example of all the outcomes. Secondly, the pedagogy include the teaching strategies, techniques, and the learning resources. Many of you have mentioned the online learning, the e-resources, etc., etc. So pedagogy include all these things. Everything has been changed. No, rather a paradigm has been shifted in certain, under certain constraints or compulsive situations that are teaching learning. We have to switch over to blended mode, or say to the virtual mode of meeting our students in our classrooms. It is a constraint. Otherwise, I think it is not a it is neither a substitute nor a good supplement. It is a poor supplement only. When I refer to the teaching strategies, techniques, learning resources, please don't confuse with only the e-resources or the online learning, etc. Everything that happen about the nuances, about the intricacies of teaching, learning, and evaluation, that happens within the classroom also, whether it is offline classroom, face-to-face mode, or it is online classroom. Then thirdly, the measurement and evaluation, or assessment and evaluation. I think it is the weakest aspect of our higher education system, or the teaching learning system. Though we designed one, we planned one session by Dr. Jayanti Datta on 15th of July, exactly on that, but she just taken at the basic level. What are the basic drawbacks in the existing assessment and evaluation system? To have a serious assessment and evaluation practices, examples of various assessment and evaluation practices should be given. Though Dr. Jayanti Datta named such assessment and evaluation practices which need to be included, I will be coming to that just after a few slides. Then attainment level, what we expect from a student, and the exact learning outcome or the attainment, what the student, the gaps between what was our expectation from the student, which we wish to exhibit him or her, and what is his attainment level. And if they match with each other, then it's good. We should continue with this cycle. But in case there is a gap, and a wide or huge gap, then we have to identify those gaps and the reasons for those gaps, whether our reason lie in curriculum, whether our reason lie in defining our learning outcomes or the levels expected from the students, or whether the gaps lie due to the teaching strategies or pedagogies, or certain, say, resources, or the quality of teachers, or due to our assessment and evaluation practices. We exactly have to identify, firstly, what is the gap, then what is the reason for that gap. So dear participants, it was the reason why I started today's presentation with three questions. I hope majority of us, rather all of us, are aware, and we rate time and again, we condemn time and again that our higher education system is blah, blah, blah. These are the reasons of our weaknesses or shortcomings. Coming to the remedies, we sometimes fail to pinpoint on a single remedy or one or two remedies which may be accounted for the improvement on a single aspect, because the single remedy cannot be suitable for all the ailings, for all the ills, for all the weaknesses. we have to design. Though I personally believe, it is my opinion, that in a majority of our shortcomings, our assessment and evaluation is responsible to some extent in a majority of the weaknesses. This is the cycle of implementing outcome-based education. Now let's consider one by one. We have to divide into four. Firstly, planning. In planning, we have to fix all the outcomes. What is the expected learning outcome? What are the course learning outcome? What is the program learning outcome? Whether they are in sync with the mission and vision of our institute and the nation or the state. Then action or do is we have to act on the basis of those learning outcomes. We have to design our curriculums. We have to design our teaching methodologies, means pedagogies, and the learning processes, and above all, our evaluation and assessment practices. Why I have this opinion, or why I made this my personal opinion, that the reason for majority of the weaknesses is our assessment practices. Why? Because, dear friends, students don't learn what we wish them to learn or what we intend them to learn. Rather, they learn what we assess. I hope I'm clear. Students usually learn what is being assessed at the end or during the process. They focus only on this. To make my point more clear, I hope in a majority of the courses, students, whenever they are approaching some terminal exam, it may be the trimester, semester, or annual, their main interest is, okay, sir or madam, what are the important questions? It means they wish to focus only on those areas which are likely to be assessed or evaluated in our evaluation or assessment scheme. And they don't bother about all the other things. For example, if say you have assigned them some activity, you have assigned them some project, but if they know that their weightage is not being considered in their terminal examination, they will leastly bother to pay attention towards them, or they will leastly be taking up seriously to that assessment or evaluation practice. Then thirdly is to assess the gaps. Means so long when we were talking about the assessment, it was assessment or evaluation of the individual, which we usually refer as the marks or the grades. Marks, grades, we are referring to the learning outcome of the student. Whereas we are concerned with the course outcome also and the program outcome also. In the next part, I will be giving example that how to assess the course or program outcomes. In your reflections, many of you told that unemployability or is one of the reason or the weakness. So unemployability means our programs perhaps are not in sync with the industry. You referred it as the industry gap in industry and academia. Many of you referred it like. So how we will be identifying whether there is a gap, and if there is a gap, then where it is and how to bridge that gap. Merely identifying or just say criticizing it that we have the gaps or the wider gaps is not sufficient. We will have to pinpoint and we have to identify those gaps so that we can design our strategy to bridge those gaps. Then came the real part, the CQI, continuous quality improvement. Now this continuous quality improvement is finding remedies exactly to those things which I am referring to, the pinpointing. When you pinpoint what are the drawbacks in your curriculum, what are the drawbacks in your methodology or pedagogy, what are the drawbacks in your curriculum or syllabi, what are the drawbacks in your faculty capabilities, then we are exactly pinpointing those. Or what are the drawbacks or the gaps in the industrial expectations and the skill, attitude, and knowledge base which we are providing to our students, where they lack, whether they are lacking in the knowledge base, whether they are lacking in the attitude base, whether they are lacking into the skill base. If we are able to identify, then we will be improving or modifying our curriculum based on that aspect. And it continuously going on it. PEOs, you have not PEOs, actually it is misspelled, PSOs. PSOs are the program specific outcomes. Let me define it. I'm coming to that. I will be taking up in program outcomes, but program outcome is general, in general term. If I say the program outcomes of BSc courses, rather take an example, yes, BSc courses, then program specific outcome is in case of say program outcomes for BSc with the biological sciences. What are the specific? Whereas the program outcomes from the outcomes of all the sciences courses. Now, when I distinguish between two, it means how general capabilities we are expecting from the students. Program outcome is very generalistic, that after completion of graduation of 3 or 4 years, a science student, when I refer BSc, means a science student will be capable of doing so and so. If I'm say classifying say BSc with these 3 options, with that 3 options, with those 3 options, those may be referred as program specific outcomes. Similarly, in case of BA, journalistic capability, when I talk of Bachelor of Humanities or Bachelor of Arts, it is journalistic. From any graduate student who complete his or her graduation, those are program outcomes. And program specific outcomes are those which are based on that particular elective subject courses which the student is opting. Suppose a student is completing his BA course with mathematics and economics. So the program specific outcomes will be defining with respect to the course outcomes for that student. I think that it will be clear in the next slide. So why now I try to make 4 things clear. Firstly, we have to plan all the 4 things which I told in the previous, that the curriculum, pedagogy, assessment. And we start with the outcome. Yes, nowadays the skill courses are more demanded. That is, I suppose I started with that. Somebody, some group of students, some group of parents are demanding a particular need, we can redesign as per NEP a short-term course, but perhaps we will not be in a position to restructure a whole of our 3 or 4 year course. Skilling is in these days, talked a lot. Though I have another type of observation regarding skilling, because skilling cannot be divided of, I use 3 words, knowledge, attitude, and skill. These are referring to the 3 domains of Bloom's taxonomy. We need at least 2 sessions to discuss in detail about Bloom's taxonomy. Neither knowledge can be devoid of the skill, nor the attitude can be devoid of the skill and the knowledge. Neither the skill can be devoid of both other 2 things, knowledge and attitude. These 3 are interrelated. So whenever any policy document say demanding the skill or skill again and again, or UGC is emphasizing, dear participants, my observation is this, that it doesn't mean improving the skills at the cost of knowledge or say wisdom, or at the cost of attitude. Then the personality of a person will be a distorted or a skewed person, will not be a balanced person, will not be a balanced human being, which we will be maybe developing. And perhaps it is happening in our society for last 20, 30 years, at least 20 years, if not more, because to authenticate this of my observation, you name some, say, academician or politician or a bureaucrat to the early eras of 50s, 60s, 70s. You might be finding certain good attitudes also amongst those persons. In particularly in this aspect, I'm hard admirer of APJ Abdul Kalam. And if you refer to the present time, the say all of three, whether it is a politician or it is a bureaucrat or it is an entrepreneur, just think of or compare. You might be finding some say deterioration. It means over last 2 decades, perhaps we lagged somewhere in our policy visions to decide about those, or at our institutional vision to pinpointedly defining the learning outcomes. So after planning, then we decide about the methodology, curriculum, assessment practices. Thirdly, we check the outcomes at student level, at course level, at program level. And then we compare the gap and identify the gaps, what was our expectation or the target level, and what is the exact attainment. And then based on that, we improve the quality of our education wherever it is required. So by now, I made it clear that what exactly is outcome-based education. It basically reflect upon 5 questions. What we wish our student to do or be able to do, it is reflected in the learning outcomes or the expected learning outcomes. I will be coming later once again with an example of learning outcomes, though I have already orated that about our 1.5 hour session, very pinpointedly, Professor Prateek Bhatia, Jayanti Datta, and both have defined exactly what learning outcomes of their 1.5 year session, 1.5 hour session was from we people. Similarly, in my case, now I'm defining it. Why I take some minutes to identify those weaknesses. So I started with this observation that I expect that my today's participants have basic knowledge and perception about the drawbacks or the say weaknesses of higher education system. They can identify their reasons and then they can suggest some remedies also. This was the prerequisite which I expect my participants to know about the intricacies. And you very rightly observed all those. I had given you categories only, and majority of the observations fall into those categories which I presented in the first 2 or 3 slides. So now what I expect you to do, or what will be your learning outcome by the end, you will be clear about what exactly is the learning outcome or the outcome based education. What is the objective of outcome based education? What are the learning outcomes at various levels? Means learning outcome for student, course outcome, program outcome. And then you will be able to identify the appropriate assessment and evaluation tool, which is not same for every outcome. You will be able to identify by the end. And lastly, you will be able to calculate the course outcome and the program outcomes. I repeat, you will be able to assess or say calculate the course and the program outcomes by end of this session. Similarly, you should be able that what are the learning outcomes from today's session. Though in many of the cases, I'm a student of mathematics, one session cannot be defined in exactly learning outcomes. Then your one topic can be the topic which you are supposed to complete in 4 or 5 sessions. Okay, even then it's good. Then the learning outcomes from your one topic, from your one say chapter or the subtopic, they need to be defined. Secondly, why we want the society, and it can be defined with the motivation or the motive. What exactly is the motive of the student behind this learning? To make it more clear, in the northern states of Punjab, Haryana, I know many of the participants are from the eastern and southern part also, but the participants from northern part can well comprehend with this example, even southern part also. In these days, many of our graduates are willing to go abroad for higher studies. And whenever they apply for higher studies, one requirement is the SOP. When they approach any of the institution, first of all, they expect their statement of purpose. And majority of our students fail exactly to understand what is expected from them in this statement of purpose. So, dear colleagues, statement of purpose means what is their motive. We usually term it as motive. What they wish to learn and what they wish to serve after learning that particular course. What motivated them to choose that particular program, why they are entering that particular institution, country, or that program, what is what they expect from that program, and how it is in sync with their life vision. And it is very difficult. Usually our students fail in it. When we say one of the participants mentioned in the problems, non-attending students, well, it is a problem. But if the students are not properly motive, have not well defined motive, they are not aware of their motive, and we fail to motivate them. Now try to relate to two words. Motivation cannot be in vacuum. We have to link it with the personal motive of the student. And if it is related with the personal motive of the student, then we need not to say time and again that you will have to come to the class, you will have to attentive, you will have to complete this assignment or task, etc., etc. So outcome based education consider this, take into consideration this aspect also. Thirdly, how can you best help the students to achieve it? Means what you expect from them, what is the motive of the student, and how you will be helping the student to achieve that, means our methodology or the teaching learning process. Fourthly, how will you know what they have achieved? We expect something to be achieved, to be performed by the students, and students have a motive for their life and from that course or program also. Then how you will be assessing that, means the evaluation, the examination, very narrowly defined the examination. I'm of the opinion that perhaps our examination system at once need to be scrapped at one time, at one moment, then need to be redesigned and rethought. Perhaps I made harsh statement. Why? Because if my student is tuned to a particular system of evaluation, I was also tuned to that particular system when I was a student, and throughout my career I'm practicing that. My teacher was also tuned to that particular system, and during his or her say student time also. So now the acceptance of a sudden change in evaluation and assessment practices will be too difficult from the students as well as the society. It is too difficult. But it is not so that we are having only uniform and very obsolete or say redundant assessment and evaluation system. I would like to refer here IISc, some IITs and some IIMs. They are using very wonderful evaluation techniques. And now many of the say new universities, they are also using software based continuous assessment and evaluation, which cannot be say manipulated, cannot be say tempered. We need to depend upon that. is skill-based subject to be given priority over languages? I think such questions cannot be answered with yes or no. No, what is your program? And what do you expect from your program? And which are the courses you are taken up? And what are the outcomes expected from your, say, that particular course? It need to be in sync. Just wait for 5-10 minutes. I will be trying to make them in sync. Then you will, I think I will be make myself more clear about it. Lastly, based on these four things, we have to continuously improve the quality of our education system. And when to stop improving the quality, we should know that. And I think the improvement in the quality never stops. It is a continuous process and it will be continuous. I'm just skipping it with just reading two things. Program outcomes and objectives. Program objectives usually are defined in terms of what are expected in theoretical terminology after the completion of that program after 3 or 5 years. Whereas program outcomes pinpointedly define the abilities which the student is able to exhibit at the completion of the program in the form of knowledge, skill, and attitudes. I think the question which was recently asked, only skill cannot be. It will be along with the knowledge and the attitudes also. So what are your program outcomes you are defining in the basis on, in the form of, say, knowledge, skill, and attitudes? Even those are not in theoretical terms, they need to be in the behavioral terminology. Sorry, I'm not going into the detail of behavioral, say, objectives, because I have to touch to the Bloom's taxonomy. And I once again need at least 1 or 2 sessions for that only. When you are talking about whether it is language or skill, okay, what are your, say, outcomes, defined outcomes from the programs, and which, say, course is catering to those skills, and which course is catering to those languages or knowledge of those languages, say, which are catering to those attitudes, group work, project work, working in an industry, say doing a project in the society or in a deprived society, etc., etc. These usually define the attitudes, or how you observe and let them behave in a group, that define about the attitudes. Course outcomes are specifically which are about that course. Learning outcome, which we usually expect from a student by the end of that. Now, I'm taking example. In case of, for example, I'm taking the course of BCA. What are the program outcomes? These program outcomes we have defined at Multani Modi College for the course of BCA, for the program of BCA. Why? Because our affiliating university is not defining the program outcomes. Now, what is the right approach? If I have to design the curriculum, then firstly, I have to be very much clear about the vision or the outcomes in our expected in our policy documents. Then I will be focusing on what is the vision and mission of my institute. In the light of those two things, I will be defining the program outcomes of this particular program. And then I will be deciding the courses in that program and the course outcomes of those courses. But in this case, we have to do a reverse process. Why? Because our curriculum is decided and prefixed by the affiliating university. So what we can do, in the light of that defined curriculum, our faculty defined the program outcomes and then the course outcomes for each courses. I hope you might have gone through this, that by completion of BCA course, a student will be able to identify, formulate, review, and analyze complex problems with various techniques. Now, when I say behavioral, now it defines what he will be able to do. So dear participants, your question was whether knowledge or skill. So if the person is able or capable of resolving a social problem or a problem pertaining to that particular field, it means obviously he or she must be having the knowledge of that theoretical aspect which is required to be applied over there to solve that problem. I hope I'm clear. If I'm taking example, say, of computer itself, so there is some, say, program is to be designed. It is a problem solving. There is some problem, and the student have to design a program to solve that problem. And that program requires a program language C or C++. Then the student need the knowledge of C++ prior to that. Secondly, we have defined that they will be able to communicate effectively the complex activities and with the society at large, and write effective documentation to make effective presentation, have give and receive clear instructions. So after completing the task, it means student will be able to document and present that document. Thirdly, function effectively in an individual as well as member of a leader or project manager in a project team. Now, this is totally attitude based. Third objective is totally attitude based, that after completion this, we expect that student will be able to work independently also, and within a team also, and as a team leader also, after obviously after some experience. It means when we expect these three things, it means we have to provide them in his or her curriculum, firstly the theoretical knowledge, secondly some work opportunities where he or she have to work independently in problem solving, thirdly we have to provide some project where they will have to work in group along with their groups to resolve a particular problem situation, and fourthly we have to assign them particular role within the group so that they can lead the group also tomorrow, and they can learn if there is a defined role of one person in a group, then he or she have to confine his or her role only. If he or she is capable of helping the other, then he or she have to take the consent of the other. That good, I have some suggestions. If you are receptive, I can give, because it can improve our project. Fourth program outcome is recognize the needs for and have the preparation and ability to engage in independent and a lifelong learning. Now it is the expectation after completion of the program that student will be continuing to excel in that. If you can recollect, I used a word in our mission statement, that students will strive for excellence even after completion of the program. It referred to that. And the last one is development of analytical program and logical skills. Means the student will be able to perform these things. Now coming to, I'm taking example of one course in BCA. If it is a 3-year program, then I think 12 to 15 courses will be there if it is annual, and it can be double if it is semester. So I'm taking one, programming fundamentals using C. Now the name itself say programming fundamentals using C, means we wish to provide that language in which student will be able to understand that knowledge, basic language, and will be able to use that language for preparing a program in that language. So in course outcome, we have defined understand various concepts of the language, develop logical and analytical ability to solve problems based on that particular say program or language. But when I say in programming, if I define it program outcome, then this analytical ability will be generalized, but here it is confined to the C language. Thirdly, learn about procedural programs using functions, so on and so on. So I hope it is clear that when you either you will be defining the program and the course outcomes if you are in a university or if you are in an autonomous institute. But if you are in an affiliated then nobody stops you to the understanding of defining the course outcomes and the program outcomes as our faculty did this, because we were not in a position, or we were not having the liberty of revising the curriculum, updating the curriculum. But nobody stops us from say orating or defining the outcomes which are expected. And I say with confidence say that we are the only college, or was the first college, who defined program and course outcomes of the Punjabi University. Expected learning outcomes, I had already discussed it. These are the requirements from the student, what we wish him to exhibit by end of the session, or by end of the 4 or 5 session, or after completion of a topic, or what active role you are expecting from the student during the session also. As during the session, in almost every session, the resource persons were involving you in one or other way. So they were defining your role. Though we are in a virtual platform, but they were say giving you opportunity to be active. What observation is there? Bloom's taxonomy. Yes, sorry, I'm not used to highlight. Well, if somebody is interested on Bloom's taxonomy, just Google it. You will find a lot of literature. But today's our discussion doesn't permit. Time doesn't permit us to discuss. Professional indicators are useful for teachers in school level. Not exactly at school level. Indicators are for defining the tool. I'm coming to that also. That what assessment tool you are taking up, and what are the predictive indicators of that tool. Those are defined as the predictive indicators. For example, in our case, we usually use say short answer type questions, or the objective type questions, or the long answer type questions. Then in that case, our indicators are little different. If we are assigning them some assignment, then our indicators will be different, predictive indicators for assessment. And if we are assigning them a project, then our predictive indicators will be altogether different in that case. So they need certain skills also, and they need to behave in a class, not only listening, rather peer tutoring, cooperative learning, how we wish them to learn. Now, and as in present case, when you are sharing your thoughts, it is also a peer learning or peer tutoring. You are giving your opinion, and I'm trying to incorporate in my say discussion during the time, and I'm reflecting on that also. It is a type of peer tutoring, but exactly not peer tutoring. When we will be defining peer tutoring, it may be in a group. And a cooperative learning, when you decide pinpointedly the role in a group of 4 or 5 persons, that is cooperative learning. These are the very well defined methodologies or pedagogies of teaching learning. Need one session at least for each one. So in skills, we need to exhibit them, the problem solving skills, the risk taking skills, and in attitudes, we expect them to exhibit respect, trust, openness, etc., etc. So coming to the assessment tools, many questions came on this. Dear participants, firstly, I am left with, I think, only 5-7 minutes. Ajit ji, is it okay if I take about 7 minutes? Program outcomes or course outcomes. Firstly, be it very much clear that there is not only the question papers which will be deciding the program and course outcomes. Permit me to start with the program outcomes. Program outcome is a quite wider thing, and how to evaluate it. There will be some qualitative assessment, means there will be the exit interview or survey with the outgoing students, which is going to complete that program. So these exit interview or surveys will be giving us what need to be improved in that program. Or alumni interviews or survey. The alumni who were the students are ex-students and are in now job, they will be better able to identify the gaps in our say teaching and the industrial expectation. And then interview or survey with the employer. What are because the employers expectations are very dynamic and are changing every day almost, so we have to have the survey or interview with them. Then another, which usually almost every institute is doing, job offers and the packages which our students are getting. Why are Ivy League institutes are Ivy League? Because they reflect that 100%, 99%, 98% placement and so package with our students. And then admission to higher program. If I have to reflect our chemistry department, biotechnology department, computer department, the students from these departments, they have joined research work in the Ivy League globally competitive universities abroad. So most of these are the qualitative. You cannot find 8 out of 10, 5 out of 10. It is not going to help us in any way. When you will be finding what are the gaps, what the students wish to learn, what they couldn't learn, then they will be helping us to redesign our program. These are particularly for course outcome. In case of course outcome, we have to provide them the group activity. And the performance in a group is to be in effective domain, means the attitudes. Then who is misbehaving? Who is not paying attention? Who is bullying the fellows? Everything evaluated. Now it is the predictive indicator. If someone is say very authoritative and he every time distract the group from their main focus, and he is interested in gossips only, and he every time say push them for gossips, it means we will fix this as a predictive indicator. How focused is the student in a group performance, in a group behavior? So this type of predictive indicators will be there. Internship or assignments, student surveys. I think majority of these tools have been used, but in our case, we are not very much rational and very strict to the evaluation. How many of you have revised the student surveys? That okay, well, students, your survey is good, but your analysis is not good. Okay, students, your survey is good, but you have picked up from Google, from such and such source. So now exactly go to that particular area and do the survey on your own. Or this was not the right technique to analyze. So analyze using this technique. So these type of exact feedbacks will be improving the quality learning of the students. So these techniques, which I referring, these are not only to assign grades or percentages only. Rather, they are the part of the formative assessment. Individual or group interviews, peer and self-evaluation, student portfolio, behavior observation, written tests, project reports, oral presentations, research reports, all of these has been discussed briefly by Dr. Jayanti also during her session. So I hope by now you are clear that we can clearly define into two ways the quantitative and the qualitative assessment tools. And in majority of the cases, we rarely use the qualitative assessment tools. And if we use, we don't give them weightage. And our students take them very casually that, okay, I can submit it with a smile to my teacher, or I can beg an apology with a very smiling face from the teacher, and teacher will accept it. And all the negative practices, because I belong to so and so, so one can phone for me and I will get good marks or internal assessment from the teacher for these activities. In a hint, I gave that a majority of these are evaluated during our internal evaluation or assessment. Now, coming to the last part of my discussion, how to calculate. I'm taking just one hypothetical example, though it is changed now. Formative assessment during the continuous assessment during the session. The class tests, the class observation, the project evaluation, the assignment evaluation, the internal house tests, mid semesters, etc., etc. Though in these days, UGC even recommend that it should be at least 40%. And in many of the cases, instead of 20, many of the institutions, universities or autonomous colleges, its percentage rose to even 50 or 60%. And the summative assessment for present example, I'm taking 80%. So internal assessment, formative assessment, 20%. Why formative? Because internal assessment is usually to give feedback to the students where you lack learning, how you can improve your learning. Formative assessment is for that. And in a majority of the cases, students themselves say are aware that I'm lacking here. If we allow the transparent revelation of their internal assessment. Now, course outcome attainment. We have to fix the target level of attainment from a particular course. For example, if I say if 60% of the students score more than the departmental average, I define it as level 2. If it is less or more, the level 1 or 3 will be defined. Let me make it more clear. I'm not talking of an individual's score. It is okay. But it is the score of the class or the department. And if 60% of students score more than a departmental average, then the course outcome attainment is at level 2. It means it includes the efficiency of the teacher also. And it evaluate the course is in sync with the statement of purpose or motive of the student also. Otherwise, if it is very less, then either of the two are at fault, whether the teacher or the capability of the teacher or the statement of purpose, what the students expect from that course is not in tune. So we have to, and if we attain this level, that 60% or more students are achieving more than the average, then it means our course outcome is attained. And if it is less than that, then it means we need certain corrective measures to improve our quality. Take one example. Now suppose we are having a 20 student in a class. 20 student, I have divided this 4 plus 5, 9 plus 7, 16 plus 4. So I have taken 3 hypothetical examples. I assign them some assignment of 15 total marks. And 4 students score 5 marks, 5 students score 7 marks, 7 students score 8 marks, 4 students score 13 marks. Then their average score is 8.15. And score only 13 is higher than 8.15. And it means 4 students scored more than 13 marks. I hope I'm clear. I'm repeating. These are the number of students. 20 students have been divided based on the frequency of scores attained. And out of 15, students score 5, 7, 8, and 13 scores. 4 students score this, 7 this, 5 students score this, and 4 students score 5 marks. So average score is 8.15. So the score more than 8.15 is only 13. And how many students scored that? 4 students. So in a way, 4 students scored more than average score. It means 4 students scored more than average score. So 4 students out of the class of 20. It means only 25% students scored more than average score. So it means we failed to attain the course outcome. Either we have to improve the curriculum, or we have to redesign, rethink our resources, or our teacher have to rethink and redesign its pedagogy and methodologies, etc., etc., etc. Or there might be some problem in some other way also. We have to take the second example. In this example, I have changed the score. Kindly check, someone has unmuted and interfering. These numerical scores in the second example, And in this case, the average score came out to be 7.75. Now 7.75 is the class average. Score 8 is higher than this, and 10 is also higher than this. It means these 7 students scored higher than average, and these 4 also. Thus, total 7 plus 4, 11 students scored higher than the class average. Am I clear? It means 11 students out of 20 scored more than average in that course. It means 11 out of 20 means 55% of the students scored more than the average of the class. Now we reach some level. In next slide, I'm coming to level. You can define your own level. Your institute can define your own level. In third example, these scores and the average is again 7.75, but the score distribution is different. So in case of 7.75, this 8 is higher than this, 9 is higher, and 10 is higher. So these 5, 7, and 4 students scored higher than average. It means total 5, 7, 12, 4, 16 students scored higher than the class average. 16 out of 20. It means 80% of the class scored than the class average. So now this will be defining our course outcome. And what was the course target level? We define the course target level like this. Means level 1, if 50% of the students scored more than average. And level 2, if 60% students are scoring higher than average. And level 3, if 70% of the students are scoring higher level. But students, you need to have whosoever is defining this particular for a institute or for a university need to have the knowledge of statistics. When you say 70%, it is quite high. It means in some of the students, case of some of the students, their score be quite low. Only then 70% of the students will be having higher. As I presented before you the example of 80%. In that case, the gap between the high scorer and the less scorer was too high. So in our example, which I took in my previous slide, so this first failed to reach any level. In this case, we attained level 2. And in this case, we attained level 3. So we defined fixed 3 levels for our course outcome, level 1, level 2, and level 3. So if in say, I have taken the example of BCA, if out of the 5 courses, 4 courses are attaining either level 50% or 60%, whereas 1 course is reaching only the level of 25%, it means I have to think about the course curriculum or the viability of or the receptibility of that course in our say students, amongst our students and society also, not only students, employer also. Another thing, we are not concerned with internal only or external only. We are having 2 separate internal and external component. Now, for example, if I'm taking up 1 course, say, sorry, it is BCA 411, say 63% of students scored higher than the average. It means 63 means we reach level 2. In case of class average, in case of say external examination, semester end examination. And 85% students scored more than average in case of internal assessment. And in this case, we reach level 3. So it means in that particular course, in our external assessment, we reach level 2, and in internal assessment, we reach level 3. And when we calculate, it means 80% of 2 and 20% of 3, it came out to 2.2. So attainment level of our this course came out to be 2, and it is fully attained. Lastly, how to make them in sync with or calculate the program outcomes. Similarly, we will be fixing the levels from program outcome as it is before you, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can be different for different programs and different from different courses also, or can be same for each university. So we can calculate it like this. if I have the course outcomes like this 2.2, 2.4, 1.9, 1.82 for all the 5 courses in that particular program, then the average, weighted average came out to be 2.05. And in case of 2.05, we very much statistically aware it is not the same level as in case of course outcome. In case of program outcome, I defined it like this. Now 2.05 fall here in this case. So it means 2.05 means level 4. We very much aware course outcome was about 2, level 2, but program outcome came to be of level 4, which is fully attained. But in case of program outcome, another qualitative method also, we need to have our course outcome and program outcomes in sync with each other. That we can do with this matrix. On these, say, our program outcomes or the program specific outcomes, and towards the column we are having the course outcomes. If we have defined this particular for the course, these were the course outcomes and it catered to this, as I discussed in the starting, this catered to this. And if I fill all these and suppose there is no tick corresponding to PO5, it means we have to redesign either our program outcome or our course outcomes. Means in that case, if no tick in PO5, either we have wrongly defined our program outcome or we failed to design our curriculum to cater to program outcome 5. So it is another qualitative way of checking program and course outcomes. So dear students, designing these outcomes is a very statistical method. But I'm sure whenever you are starting your class or your topic, every teacher is aware about the learning outcomes which are expected from the students. And that whenever I'm asking a question in my class, it means I'm getting, say, I'm evaluating them on continuous parameter as formative evaluation. When I'm getting their opinions, it means I'm getting their feedback. Thank you very much. I hope our next sessions resource persons are with us. So over to Dr. Ajit ji, as per your time.
Thank you, sir, for your deliberation. Now the session is open for the question answer. So if any candidate want to ask the question, he or she can type in the chat box or can unmute herself to ask the question. Any query from the participants?
Some of the questions which are say raised earlier regarding the skill or the language, knowledge or the attitude, or how to assess and evaluate about the tools, I think all of those has been discussed during my presentation in the say later slides.
Yes, so,
our next resource persons, Vice Chancellor Professor Karamjit is with us. Welcome, sir. And Professor Neelima Bhagwati is also with us. Sir, I will be taking only 2 minutes. We are late by 5 to 7 minutes. I feel for that. I'm just concluding if there is any query. Ajit ji, I think I'm not getting any query because those were taken up during the session only. So thank you very much. Over to Dr. Ajit.
Okay, thank you, sir. There is no query in the session. So the session was very informative and the participants are enlightened about the outcome-based education, how to design the program outcomes, course outcome, and the learning outcomes, and how these outcomes can be assessed at the end for the students.